One, we are live.
A very good morning to one and all. Respected head of the department, Dr. Gauri Vahalkar ma'am, our esteemed guest speaker for today, Ms. Kavita Gokhale from EnviroCare Labs, my colleagues Ms. Subhashini Maharana and Ms. Suhana Kolavur, and my dear participants, I welcome you all for the webinar on microbiological testing for food products and their permissible limits. I would like to make some small announcement before handing over to Gauri madam regarding the feedback link and the certificates. See, the feedback link shall be provided in the description box towards the end of the session, as along with that, you will also be provided in the chat box. So you can just click on the link and send your feedbacks. Only the participants who can successfully fill up the feedback form will be getting the certificates. And the certificate shall reach you within 15 days. So no queries will be entertained regarding the certificates. So kindly cooperate with us. I would like to now hand over to Gauri ma'am to introduce our guest speaker.
Yes, I'm audible to all.
Yes, yes ma'am.
Yes, thank you, Aditi. As Aditi introduced, good morning all from Dr. Gauri. I will just introduce today's esteemed speaker for the webinar, that is Ms. Kavita Gokhale. She is manager to microbiology, deputy quality management head for microbiology and molecular biology lab in for EnviroCare. She is monitoring and management of lab operations, quality system, operational efficacy, quality services. She is even providing technical support to build up new customers. She is taking care of technical projects. In that, she is handling scientific protocol for projects, efficacy studies, preservative challenges studies, validation, as well as shelf life studies, prepare a project report. Also, proficiency testing programs, conducting internal audits. She is a technical assessor for NABL as per ISO ISC 17025 2017. He has conducted internal audits also, registered as Envirocal as a at International uh, Food Safety Conclave, International Food Safety Conclave at Indore in 2019. She is an internal auditor also. She has conducted training programs, various training programs, workshop, risk management at each every year. She is training for customers for microbiology testing of food samples as well as sweet makers, that is mithai wala. She has trained many times FSSAI team for microbiological testing and food testing, as well as for food handlers. With this brief introduction, I will hand over today to Kavita madam to start with us today's session.
A very good morning to all who are attending this seminar. Am I audible to all?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, our today's topic is the microbiological testing of food products and their permissible limits. This is a very interesting topic and it is very close to our heart because we know that various food are coming into the market. So whenever we are eating, there is always a question mark whether the food is good, the quality is good, and what actually is the permissible limit for all these products coming into the market from various sources. So in today's seminar, we will be covering what all topics we will be covering. They are listed over here. We'll be take a very brief introduction to the microbiology, what actually microbiology is. Then what is food safety and microbiology, how it is interlinked. Then what are the requirements. Then need for microbiological testing of food, why actually it is required. Then actual testing part, we will be touching to this topic, how the testing goes on, what all steps are there in the microbiological testing, and what all challenges are there in the microbiological testing of the food. Then microbiological sampling, which plays an equally important part into the standardization or limits of the microbiological food products. Then microbiological test parameters, how the parameters have been selected, what is the base of that selection of that parameters, and why it is not applicable to all the foods, and only the specific organism have been say evaluated for a particular food. Establishment of the criteria, it is based on what all parameters that will be seen. Then microbiological limit, finally what all limits are available overall in worldwide as well as region wise. So coming to the microbiology part, microbiology is a branch of microbiology that deals with the study of microscopic life forms. So you all are aware, microbiology nowadays become a very famous because of the coronavirus, and you all know that it's like you cannot imagine in what way it can produce and how can it infect, how much population is get affected because of this. So it includes bacteria, fungi, algae, protozoa, and of course the viruses. Now coming to the food safety and microorganisms, how they are interlinked. When we say that American food supply, it gives us the image that it is the safest in the world. But still there are 48 million cases of foodborne illnesses annually in America. So when we say calculate it, so it is like one person in 6 Americans get say infected because of the unsafe food, and it causes 1,28,000 hospitalization and 3,000 deaths. Then what about India? The current statistic identifies increasing number of reported food poisoning in India. So how much it is? So these are the reported cases we are talking about. So there are number of unreported cases in India because say you go to the village part of India, so these cases are not at all been reported. So the reported cases says that there are more than 10 million cases per year in India. Coming to the next part, food safety and workerism, how they are interlinked. Food poisoning is the illness that results due to the consumption of food or drink which is contaminated. So the contamination can be pathogenic because of the bacteria, virus, parasites, toxins, or other chemicals. So when we say about organism, biological contamination, the first organism comes to our mind, or we hear about organism very frequently is the E. coli, Salmonella, and some viruses like norovirus. Contamination of food causes at any point of your food chain. It can be from the starting your pre-harvesting part to your say final product coming to on your dining table. So it's at any part of the food chain it get contaminated. Illness and foodborne injury can be fatal. As you all know that it is very dangerous. So you cannot take the organism for granted. So you need a very keen attention to at each and every step of food processing. It causes huge damage to the trade as well as the tourism. Food spoilage is just wasteful, and it costs a lot to the industry because there are a lot of recalls because of the food spoilage. Sometimes the food spoilage, it may not be it may not cause any disease, but it makes the food unfit for consumption. That's why it's very important to keep the food safe at every stage of the food process. Coming to the next part, contamination of food. Food contamination is generally defined as the food that are spoiled or infected. So every time it is not say the food is always say it is infecting. It can be only spoiled, but because of the spoiling, it becomes its appearance become like this. You cannot eat the food. So what are the causes? It can be bacteria, it can be a parasite, it can be other toxic substances apart from the biological contaminations. What are all these contaminations are? Biological, chemical, as well as physical contamination. We'll just see what all contaminations are there. So these slides we'll try to cover. So physical hazard, what all physical hazards are there? So like the rodent hair is there, nail is there, so some mastic is there. Mastic you can find in the say food product. Apart from that, the chemical contamination, it includes say various type of non-permissible additives are there, or it is in the excess form. The cleaning chemicals are there. Suppose the segregation is not proper at the food say processing unit, so there are very high chances of getting the food contaminated because of the chemical contaminants. Now coming to the microbiological contamination, or we can say biological contamination. So these are the major major parts which contaminate the food. It includes bacteria, yeast, protozoa, mold, viruses. These are the main causes of contamination. So physical, chemical, and biological, these are all the reasons for contamination of food. Now coming to the biological contamination. Biological contamination is one of the most common cause for poisoning as well as spoilage. even a single bacterium can multiply very quickly, and then they find the ideal. When they get the ideal good condition, you can see in the picture that they grows or they multiply so fast that it becomes very harmful to human being. You can take the example of virus, coronavirus. We can see how fast it spreads. So it is very important. The only thing we can do is we can take the precautions. Food infection and food intoxication. So what actually is the difference between the food infection and food intoxication? Food infection, it is caused by ingestion of a food which contains actually the live organism or the bacteria in the food itself. While intoxication is caused by the food which contains the toxin which is produced by the bacteria. Sometimes while analyzing the analysis of the food, you get the result that salmonella is absent, but still there is a infection, or you can say there is a food poisoning. So what can be the reason? Food intoxication can be the reason of this food infection or food poisoning, because though the organism is not being detected, there is a presence of the toxin produced by the organism. So few examples we can say: infection is caused by the salmonella and actual presence of the salmonella in the food, while intoxication may be caused because of Clostridium botulinum, Bacillus cereus, and Staphylococcus aureus. When we'll go into the next slides, so you will be able to correlate when you are coming to the limit part of it. So why these organisms are being enumerated? Because the number matters a lot. When Staphylococcus aureus is in a huge number or Bacillus cereus is in a higher number, it produces the toxin which makes the food safe, unsafe for consumption. That's why when the parameters are being taken during the preparation of the criteria, the organism every time it is not been tested as a qualitative. Sometimes it is required to do the quantification of the parameter. What are the different sources of microbiological contamination? So there are several steps when actually the food come to your table. So it's not like from the farm directly it is coming to you. There are various food chain, food chain is involved into that. So the organism get lot of opportunities to contaminate the food at various stages. So microbial contamination, how it can be avoided? So by doing the microbiological monitoring of the food processing environment to check the effectiveness of the cleaning and disinfection conducted over there, and determining that if the organism is present, then immediate action can be taken. So how it is done? Environmental monitoring is one of the very important part in the food processing units. So how it is been done? It is been done by taking not only the final product, but it has been done using the different swabs from various surfaces. It can be from the equipment. You can take the swab from the handlers, food handlers, even from the apron, the food handler they are wearing. Then from say various different type of say surfaces which is in direct contact with the food, which is not in direct contact with the food, but it can infect the food or it can cause say contamination of the food. As well as air monitoring is also a very important part of this environmental monitoring, because what is the load, microbial load in the air, it plays a very vital role in the final product when you will be packing and giving it to the customer. The contamination through the facility, equipment, person, air that just now we have discussed. So at various stages, this food contamination occurs, and that is why it is very much required that we need to monitor at various stages of food processing. What is the need? Why we need to say test this food? So the very first and the very important part is that it should be safe. The food should be safe at every stage. So it is like a priority as well as the legislative requirement at all stages, not only the final product, but it should be tested at the raw material stage as well as at the final product coming to the say market, or it is coming on your table. Microbiological contamination of food involves three type of major. They have been divided into three types. Main is the indicator microorganism, then safety indicator, even it is called as a pathogenic organism, and the spoilage causing microorganism. This contamination can spoil the food. It may introduce a toxin into the food, and which cause various type of diseases. That is what it is very important to test the food microbiologically, so that we can quickly identify the contamination and we can treat them before they go irreversible damage. Means there can be a food recall, There can be a major, food poisoning. So that's why it is very, very important to test the food microbiologically. So what are other needs why it is being tested? Sometimes it is a regulatory requirement. You need to test the food. Then it can be a part of a testing program. It can be a buyer requirement. Sometimes in the regulation there are parameters, number of parameters are given, but the buyer, suppose it's say from say England, or it is say from America, or it is say from Singapore. So they have different requirements. So accordingly, the food has been tested for different parameters as per the buyer requirement or as per the testing program. So sometimes it has been tested to check the product history, what actually is the history of the product, where are the sources of contamination. So it's like for the study, it has been testing has been done. Sometimes it is to identify or to fix the in-house specification for the ingredients, various ingredients going into the product, or it can be a part of HACCP validation or verification. What are the common test methods in the microbiological testing? So there are various technologies coming into the market. So these are majorly been divided into three parts. One is the cultural method, second is the immunoassay, we also call it as an ELISA method, and the polymerase chain reaction method. So these are the main popular methods in the testing part. So culture method is nothing but the conventional method where, though it takes long time to get the result, but these methods are the very robust method. So these methods are being followed in almost all the laboratories in house as well as the external party laboratories. They go for the culture method test. But when there is a say shelf life of the product also matters a lot. When the shelf life of the product is very less, or you have to release the product, so that time the rapid testing methods are very much important and they plays a very vital role to release the product. So that's why the rapid methods are being introduced and they are being used. So what are the different challenges are there while the microbiological testing of food has been conducted? So very first part, everyone know that as the uneven distribution of the organism in the food. So the organism are been, some organism you can say they can be found on the surface of the food. Some of the organism they prefer to grow into the inside or in the bottom of the say food packs. That's why whenever you have to take a food for testing, it need to be completely homogenized. So even there are different ingredients, and all that ingredients may have their its own microbiological load. That's why the results are affected significantly if it has not been properly mixed. Then when it's a multi-component product, so they have their inherent properties, like some food are having a very high content of moisture or water activity, or some of the organisms, some of the products, they are very having a very low pH, just like your food products or beverages, which are very acidic pH. So in that time, every time you have to take different parameters into consideration, as well as you need to say take different methods also while testing that type of food. So the same method cannot be used for each and every product. So choice of a method is also matters a lot. What organism you are going to test, everything depends upon what type of food it is. Now coming to the sampling part, when you have to do say microbiological testing, the sampling plays a very vital role, because suppose the sampling has not been done correctly, so you cannot rely on the result what you are getting through your analysis. So what all the points are there, which are the requirements for the good sampling? So inspection of lot being a very important part. You cannot just randomly go and take the sample. You have to first inspect the lot. From that, you need to have you need to decide from actually how many say bags you have to cover through a lot. When there are big consignments, it matters a lot to select the lot. Then use of suitable sampling devices for the particular commodity. So devices may differ. Sometimes suppose you have to do the cheese sampling, so you need some different type of apparatus to cut the cheese to get the proper say representative sample of the cheese. Then use of suitable containers to hold the sample. Of course, when it comes to the microbiological testing, it is very much required that you should take the sample into a sterile container. So it can be a sterile Ziploc bag, it can be different type of containers which are available readily in the market that need to be used when you are doing the sampling for microbiological testing. Then maintenance and integrity of the sample. So whenever the sampling has been done, when the sample come to the laboratory, it should be the integrity of sample, it need to be maintained, and the use of adequate precautions like preservation, packing, it also matters a lot. Suppose you're while say sending the sample through courier or through various means, if the sample has not been handled, right, if the packet is been properly sealed, so it definitely going to affect the result. The provision of appropriate storage conditions. So during the analysis, when it reaches to the laboratory, so by that time you need to have take lot of precaution to avoid all type of cross contamination of the product, so that you get the reliable result. So again, the important and very important part is the laboratory layout. So as a good laboratory practice, the area segregation is mandatory. So if you are taken all the precautions while doing the sampling, you are taken all the sterile containers, all the measures have been taken, and when it comes to the laboratory, if the laboratory infrastructure is not as per the requirement, so again there is a question mark on the results you are getting. So you should have a separate change room. You should have a proper sample acceptance area, sample receipt area. Sterilization and media preparation room should be segregated. Then sample preparation and inoculation room should be separate. Incubation area and discard washing area. So all these things are properly segregated to avoid any type of cross contamination during the analysis of the sample. What all methods are being used for microbiological testing? So there are various methods which I have listed out. The Indian standard methods are there. Then International Organization of Standardization, that is the ISO methods are there. Bacteriological Analytical Manual, that is the USFDA BAM method is there. Then compendium is also called the AFA method, which is a compendium of method for microbiological examination of food, which gives very say different methods, for the variety of food can be tested using these methods. Then AOSC methods are there. Some of the methods say like raw material. Yeah, it depends where actually it has been used. Accordingly, the methods can be applied. So coming to the microbiological testing part, what are the general steps in the microbiological analysis of the food? So very first is the aseptic handling. Whenever you get the food in the laboratory, so how we need to be handled, because at every stage there are a lot of chances of getting contamination. So I have shown some pictures over here. You can see here in the slide that when you get the sample, so you need to handle in such a way that no any other contamination from outside goes into the sample. So suppose for example one packet of sample you are having for testing. So that time you need to clean the sample packet externally with 70% IPA, make it say disinfected, and then you have to cut the sample, of course using the scissor which have been say heat sterilized. So accordingly you are trying to avoid any chance of the food getting contaminated because of the external environment. The sample has been weighed. After weighing, so normally in normal methods it has been mentioned that sample need to be taken as 25 gram of sample into 25 ml of sterile diluent. The diluent will change. Then the next slide we will be seeing what all recommendations are given in different methods. So the ideally it should be 1:10 dilution. So you can take 10 gram in 90, 25 gram in 225 in some methods like USFDA BAM method. Depending upon the product, they suggest that you need to take 50 gram of sample in 450 ml of the diluent. So accordingly, it will change what product actually you are handling. When it is a meat product or say high risk products are there, so that time your sample quantity may change. It depends upon the method you are following. The next steps comes to the serial dilution. So here, very important part is that when you are weighing the sample, after weighing of the sample, suppose you have a meat or chicken sample is there, so it is very important that you need to stomacher. You have to do the mixing of the sample, complete crushing of the sample is very important. Otherwise, you will not get the correct result. So I have seen the stomacher picture of the stomacher in the slide. So it has been completely mixed and then it is again taken into the flask. Then you can go further for the serial dilution and plating into the sterile plates. So all the microbiological testing, as you know, it is done in duplicates. After plating, the pouring of the media has been done and then it has been incubated at the standard temperature and period. It also matters what method you are using. So accordingly, in the next slide, I will show you what all differences are there as per the method. After completion of the incubation, you have to observe the result and interpretation of the result has been done. So these are the simple steps where serial dilution and plating is done. So while doing the serial dilution, what is important is the vortexing. Vortexing is very important, otherwise uniformity will not, always it is a challenge with microbiological testing. So all these steps, you cannot skip any of the step while doing the analysis or while performing the testing of the microbiological products. Serial dilution, what actually I'll just explain it shortly. So your initial sample has been taken into the flask, say 25 gram into 25 ml. From that you have to take 1 ml and yet that has been added into 9 ml of a saline or it can be a phosphate buffer. Again from that first tube it has been transferred to the second tube. In this way the serial dilution has been conducted. Now there are two different methods into where we call is that a pour plate method and the spread plate method. So in the picture I have shown that pour plate method, how it goes, that you have to take 1 ml of sample and into the plate it has been in the sterile plate it has been plated out. Then the media, appropriate media has been added, the proper mixing has been done and it has been incubated. While in case of spread plate method you need to use the media which is already been pre-prepared and it has been dried. So it is very important the plate should be pre-dried and a sterility check has been done for these plates. Then using the glass rod it has been evenly spreaded over the surface and after that complete drying of the inoculum is done and then the plate has been incubated at appropriate temperature and pressure. Now as we have discussed that what actually the difference is there in the method. So this is just for an example. I have taken say one parameter, that is the total viable count. It is also called as a standard plate count. It is also called as a say bacterial count. So this method, there are various methods like ICE method, then ISO method is there, AFA method, then BAM, US FDA BAM chapter 3 is there. So where is the actual difference? So diluent can be different. Then the media used, the inoculation media in ICE method, they have mentioned about the nutrient agar, while ISO says it's a plate count agar. AFA mentioned about the tryptone glucose extract agar. So these are the various different media can be used, and accordingly the incubation temperature also varies as per the method. Say for IS it is 35 degree, then it is as per ISO it is 30 degree, but you can notice that they gives the, if the temperature is less then the incubation period is increased. So why it is there? So the simple logic is there, when you are reducing the temperature you are increasing the incubation period so that the stressed organism get the chance to grow in the proper environment so that we can get the correct result. Now coming to the test parameter, what all test parameters are being tested during the microbiological analysis of food product. So as per FSSAI, they have categorized these microbiological parameters into major two types. First is the hygiene indicator organism and the safety indicator organism. Hygiene indicator organism gives the parameters like aerobic plate count, coliform count. Again, it can be in some food matrix. It says about the testing of Enterobacteriaceae count, Eastern mold count, then Staphylococcus aureus. These are majorly taken as a hygiene indicator organism. And safety indicator organism includes the E. coli, Salmonella shigella, Vibrio cholera, Parahemolyticus, Listeria, Clostridium perfringens, and Botulinum. Pseudomonas species are there, Listeria monocytogenes, and Bacillus cereus. So accordingly, the parameters have been categorized into major two types. Now, what these hygiene indicator organisms are? So these organisms determine the potential presence and absence of the organism, as well as it is very useful to check the effectiveness of the cleaning and sanitization done during in the food processing environments. What are the benefits of this hygiene indicator organism? The very first important benefit is that you don't require, say, sophisticated facilities like you need a biosafety cabinet and all. It can be done into the laminar airflow as well. And these organisms are being tested for the one more important reason is that they are always present in high numbers. So it can be easily enumerated. So what are the examples of this hygiene indicator organism? We will be seeing the next slide. Safety indicator organism are the bacterium or virus which actually cause the disease. The foodborne pathogen And the foodborne contamination can be because of the bacteria, it can be because of their toxins, it can be because of the parasite viruses. So various reasons are there for the infection of the food, as we have already seen it. But safety indicator organism mostly are the E. coli, say S. aureus, Listeria, Salmonella, Vibrio cholera, and Salmonella being the biggest culprit in all the serious food poisoning cases. Now coming to the qualitative and quantitative testing of the microbiological test parameters. So qualitative testing and quantitative testing, what are the major difference in these two tests are there? So quantitative testing is nothing but the enumeration or estimation of the total microbial load on the food sample. So it won't give you the exact idea what are organisms are there. You will just get an idea what is the microbial load. So total organism present in that particular food sample. So compared to that, this qualitative test, it gives or detects the presence of certain foodborne pathogens. So it is very specific to that particular organism testing. So in that, what are the simple steps? Just now we have seen that the aliquots are being done by serial dilutions, and then pore plating or surface plating is done on the non-selective media like plate count agar, trypticate soya agar, potato test agar. This is in case of Eastern mold count. So here the steps are more when you go to the qualitative testing. So here you have to do say isolation for the isolation of organism. First, it has been enriched into the non-selective enrichment media, so that you are giving a chance to organism to grow. Those they are the stressed organism. They are also been given a chance to grow into the environment where there is no selective say ingredients have been added. Once it has been the organism are been say increased in number, it goes into the selective enrichment. Selective enrichment, after selective enrichment, the selective enrichment is the environment which gives the organism chance to grow, and the other organism which are not of interest it has been removed or been killed by various selective agents. Then from the selective enrichment, it has been say used, the solid media is used for which is been selective as well as differential, and which gives the organism of interest. Once we get a typical type of colonies, typical means which are given in the standard, what all color should be there, what all type of size and different selective medias are there. So it has been mentioned in the standard what type of organism it should be and how it looks. So we cannot even depend upon that selective or the particular or typical type of organism. Again, once we get the organism, it has been tested by biochemical confirmation, and once we get the biochemical confirmation, again the next step is the serological confirmation of that organism. When coming to the example part, as you already seen that the total plate count, coliform, interbacterial yeast and mold, some psychrophilic, thermophilic count, these are just the quantitative test where you get the just idea of how much quantity of or how much microbial load is there in that sample. While in the qualitative test, yeah, Salmonella, E. coli, Clostridium, E. coli, O15787, then Listeria monocytogenes, these are the parameters are tested into the qualitative testing. Even for some of the cases, just like say your raw meat is there. So in raw meat, E. coli has not been detected, it has been enumerated. So again, we will be, when we will go to the limit part of it, we will see what parameters are being say qualitatively tested or quantitatively tested. Though the pathogens are there, so these pathogens are also being enumerated and as per the food matrix. So this is a very simple steps which are involved in the total plate count or viable count, which is a quantitative test. So sample has been weighed, 25 gram or 225 sample into the phosphate buffer. Then serial dilution has been carried out, and from that serial dilution, 1 ml of the aliquot has been taken and which has been into the sterile petri plates in duplicates. So after the plating, pouring has been done with the non-selective media, which is a plate count agar. The plates are incubated at 35 degrees Celsius for 48 hours. It is as per US FDA BAM method. When it comes to the IS method, the IS method says that it should be incubated at 30 degrees Celsius for say 72 hours. So it varies as per the method. Then coming to the qualitative testing. So I have taken one example for E. coli, testing isolation and identification of E. coli. So 25 gram of sample has been taken into 225 of enrichment media. Here we don't use the phosphate buffer or saline. Here we require enrichment media which gives organism, all the stressed organism to grow and multiply. So at the same time, the first dilution, that is your initial dilution has been inoculated into the McConkey broth, and at the same time it has been strict on the selective medias. Then selective enrichment is there, non-selective, then selective enrichment, incubation. When we get the metallic shin, smooth colonies are there. It has been tested for the biochemical confirmation, just like your IMVIC test is there, TSI, urea test is there, fermentation of different carbohydrate, sugar test is there, and of course the gram staining has been done. After, in case of E. coli, O157, there are some serological confirmations also there. Even for salmonella, you need to do, before you conclude that the salmonella is present or detected into a sample, the serological confirmation is mandatory. Now coming to the limit part of the food standards. So Codex Alimentaire Commission, Codex standards are the international food text, which are the standards or code of practices, code of hygiene practices, or it gives the guidelines. Even it gives a recommendation to establish or to protect the health of the consumer at all stages of the food supply chain. It is the international food standard, and it is being jointly established by the Food Agriculture Organization, that is FAO, and the World Health Organization, which is you all know, WHO, and it has been established in May 1963 with the objective of protecting the consumer's health and ensuring the fair practice in the food trade. Currently, there are 189 Codex members are there, and 188 members are the other country members, as well as one is the member organization, which is the European Union. India has become the member of this Codex in 1964. Codex standards. These Codex standards typically deal with the hygiene practices. It gives the guidelines what all practices need to be followed: labeling, contaminants, additives, inspection and certification, nutritional residues of veterinary drugs and pesticides. So there are two different main standards are there. One is the commodity related standard and one is the regional standard. In the commodity standard, the Codex Committee standards refers to the specific product only. So they give commodity wise, it gives the standard or the limits to the specific food group. And the regional standards are developed by the respective regional coordinate committees and applicable to the respective region only. Then coming to the ICMSF, this is the International Commission of Microbiological Specification for Foods. It is a group of experts formed in 1962 to provide timely and very important is a science-based guidance to the government and industry for applying or controlling the microbiological safety of food. The main outcome are the various scientific papers, books are published, and these documents are very well available for the use of the industry people. These guidelines are actually linked with the International Union Microbiological Societies as well as to the World Health Organization of the United Nations. In 2006, ICMS has 17 members from 10 countries and has 3 active sub-commissions, which is LAS, SEAS and China NES. Establishment application of the microbiological standard. Microbiological standards are based on the scientific analysis and the sufficient data studied. So scientific analysis is, of course, depends upon what actually is the food product, how it has been, whether it is a processed, what all various process conditions it has been gone through, and different type of analysis done at various stages has been collated, and all that sufficient data has been used while developing the standards. The standards are developed in a transparent fashion and it meets the requirement for fair trade. It cannot be very stringent, it needs to be very justifiable manner. These standards have been periodically reviewed for the relevance of with respect to the emerging pathogens as well as the changing technologies and the new understanding of the society. New various food products are coming into the market. So accordingly, different pathogens also we can see coming into the picture. So every time these standards need to be reviewed for this emerging pathogens. 3 type of microbiological criteria are being suggested. One is the microbiological standard, then microbiological guidelines and microbiological specification. So what microbiological standards are? These are the mandatory criteria which are written into the law or government regulations, and one has to follow. There is no excuse. It has been these are the legislative requirement that you need to follow the microbiological standard. Few examples are the European Hygiene and Food Safety Criteria 2073 2005. In our say country, there's a food safety standard regulation is there. So these are the mandatory standards. When coming to the microbiological guidelines, this criteria which provides advice to food manufacturers about the acceptable as well as expected microbiological level when the food production process is under the control. So this is specifically for the food manufacturers and food processors are there. They need to follow these guidelines. So these guidelines are being developed depending upon what all processing is there, what actually type food matrix has been covered into it. Then microbiological specification, these are the criteria established between the buyer and the producer, which defines the product quality and safety attributes required by the buyer. So these are the main different say types of microbiological criteria, or we can say microbiological standards. The one is the microbiological standard, which is mandatory. Then second is the guideline, which is for the food manufacturer, and third one is the specification, which are for the buyer and the producers. Now the important part is the sampling plan. How the sampling plan plays a very important role that we'll see through different coming various slides. So sampling plan summarizes the requirement and defines their stringency. It is the basis of decision of release and acceptance of any say tested lot or a batch. Sampling plan are expressed in for expression of these plans 3-4 parameters are been defined, and there are two types, two type of plan, 3-class and 2-class plans are there. So that we'll see with the diagrammatic presentation. So it will help to understand what exactly these 2-class and 3-class plans are there. Every sampling plan has a certain amount of risk. So though we have taken all the precautions to do the proper sampling to get the representative sample, so because of the heterogeneous nature of the organism present in the food sample, so there are some chances of getting the good lot rejected while the bad lot has been accepted. But still we need to stick to all the plans being developed by the study, by the scientist and the committee. Parameter defining sampling plans. What all this, you remember all these small say parameters which are going to help you while understanding how actually the limit goes, how the microbiological limit actually works. So n is the small n is there, it is the number of samples or unit been analyzed. So the plan, as per the plan, when you see the table of the limit, microbiological table for the limit, there you will see this N, C, small m, big M. So what is the role of all these say parameters in actually the limit table? N is the number of sample or unit analyzed. C is the maximum allowable number of sample unit yielding marginal result or results between M and N. This is C is the maximum allowable number. M is the microbiological level that separate good quality from the defective one. And big M is a microbiological level in 3-class plan that separates marginal acceptable from the unacceptable or the defective quality. In 2-class plan, so you will understand in the next slide what is 2 and 3-class. In 2-class plan, M is included into small m, big M is included into small m. So this picture will help us to understand what actually the class 2 and class 3 plans are there. So class 2 plan is the safety purpose is the safety plan, or it is used for the safety purpose, and second one is the third class is the hygiene indication. So this N here from the table we can understand N is the number of sample units. So it is recommended that you need to analyze from 5 to 30. It depends what type of food it is. So accordingly you need to take at least 5 to 30 number of samples. And for the safety, you can see the small c. What the small c says, the number of unit allowed to exceed the criteria is 0 when it comes to the safety. In class 2 plan, the C mention it should be 0. It is not at all acceptable that any single sample is showing the unsatisfactory result. And M is the limit below which all the results are satisfactory. So here the limits are given. For example, in case of safety parameters, the limits are always present and absent. So it should be always absent. So there is a zero tolerance. So coming to the 3-class or hygiene plan, A, the number of samples to be analyzed. C is the number of units which are allowed to exceed the criteria. So it is 2, 3. So when actually we will see the table, you will understand it in a better way. Then M, in case of brittle point, it is not at all acceptable, unsatisfactory result are not acceptable. And M, bigger M, or you can say capital M, is the limit above which all the results are unsatisfactory. We will again see in details what actually the sampling plans are there. So there are two widely accepted type of sampling plans which has been defined by ICMSF. So 2-class plan, they are used essentially for the pathogens and where a presence absent test is to be performed. In the case of presence absent analysis, C is 0, M is 0. The presence of target organism is unacceptable. And the 3rd-class plan or 3-class plan is there. These are the frequently used for hygiene indication where the enumeration of organism is being conducted. Such plans can be used to separate the quality of lot into acceptable, marginally acceptable or unacceptable. So again, this is a one diagrammatic representation where you can see how the 2 and 3-class plan works. 2-class plan, acceptable and unacceptable. These are the only choices you have. The microbiological limit separates the quality of the food between acceptable and acceptable. And in the 3-class plan, the microbiological limit M, that is a small m, separates the quality of a lot between acceptable, marginally acceptable and unacceptable as shown in the diagram. Acceptable is a very good, satisfactory results are there when there are say a few number of organisms have been observed which are in the acceptable range. So this is called as the marginal one where you can go with it, but unacceptable is you have to reject the lot. Components of microbiological standard for food. What all the components are there? Microbiological criteria consist of declaration of microorganism of concern. There is what all parameters need to be tested is being declared over there. So analytical method, what methods need to be used for the detection or quantification of that particular food product. Then the sampling plan is also given, and the number of analytical units that should be conformed to these limits is also mentioned in the microbiological limits. Microorganisms of importance in a particular food. The microorganism included in the standard are the pathogen. It can be a pathogen, it can be an enteric organism, or it can be a spoilage organism. So the codex states that it should be developed or it should be done on the basis of whether it is actually or potential hazardous to the health. Then effect of further processing should be considered while developing the limit. A likelihood or consequences of the microbiological contamination and or growth during the subsequent handling, storage and use of it, and underlying health of the consumer concern. So in the next table we will be seeing this part is very important, that what are the consumer group. So if it is infants, then it is very stringent. When it goes to the adult, it may be very lenient, but in case of infant food, the criteria are very stringent. Microbiological limit used in criteria are majorly based on the appropriate data, microbiological data appropriate to the food as well as variety of the similar type of food. Any change in the microflora during the storage and distribution are always taken into account. The risk associated with the microorganism and the condition under which the food is expected to be handled is also considered. Then the likelihood of uneven distribution of organism is also taken into consideration by developing the limits. Now coming to the significance of the microorganism which are being tested for a particular sample type or a matrix. So standard plate count or total viable count, why it is been tested. So this standard plate count, it varies markedly according to the type of food product. So you will not get the standard plate count same everywhere. Suppose it is a pasteurized milk, you will get some different count. When coming to the say sterilized milk or UHT milk, you need not have to do the testing even, because you are gone through the sample has been gone through such a process that you are expecting there should not be any count, so it should be nil. So it varies according to the processing being done to the sample, and actually it gives you the idea of what actually is the load on that sample. So based on the standard plate count, you cannot conclude anything. Then coming to the interbacteriacy, this parameter is basically represents the bacteria from the human and animal intestine, and these are the useful indicator of the hygiene as well as the contamination during the heat process if it is not been properly followed. E. coli is an indication of poor hygiene condition which have led to the contamination or inadequate heat treatment are being done to the food product. SOEs, coagulase positive staphylococci. This indicate that time and temperature abuse of the food is like to be occurred, or as well as the improper handling of the food is being done during the food preparation. Clostridium perfringens generally occurs as a result of temperature abuse, where the cooked food are held at warm temperature, which is less than 60 degrees Celsius, and for the extended period of time, and it has been cooled very slowly. The temperature it should be kept at say temperature it should be less than 4 degree or 5 degrees Celsius. Then Bacillus cereus, it occurs as a result of inadequate temperature control, and the food associated for testing of Bacillus cereus are mostly the cooked rice dishes are there, or cereal based foods are there. Here the Bacillus cereus or S. aureus, when we see the limit table, you will notice that Bacillus cereus, then Staphylococcus aureus, these are been enumerated because they are the food poisoning organism. They actually produce a toxin, and when the number of organisms are very high, there is a very high chance of getting the food contaminated because of the toxin of the organism produced. Vibrio paramelyticus, it is relevant to the seafood samples, and the high level indicates that the food is being inadequately cooked, or there are chances of cross contamination also. Uh, Say 10:2 CFU, that is 100 Vibrio cholera count in the raw seafood is expected because of the natural contamination from the aquatic environment. But when the food sample, seafood sample, has been processed, then it is expected that the organism should be absent in that particular lot, because in the food processing it goes to various cleaning and disinfection stages. That time it is not at all acceptable the presence of Vibrio paramelyticus. Salmonella, it indicates the poor food preparation as well as handling practices, and also the cross contamination. Listeria, it's a widespread organism you can get in various type of environment, and it has been it indicates that the food has been inadequately cooked and contaminated after preparation. Test parameter for fish and fish product. Now we will see what FSSR mentions. The Food Safety Standard Authority of India, they have given these regulations, and as per the regulation, fish and fish products are being tested. You already now aware of how the organism or the parameters are being divided. One is the hygiene indicator, and second is the safety indicator. So aerobic plate count, SORES, yeast and mold are indicator of the hygiene, as well as the food safety indicator are the E. coli, Salmonella, Vibrio cholera, Listeria, and Clostridium botulinum. So what type of processing the food has undergone, accordingly the parameters are being decided. In the next slide, you will see how it has been categorized. The chilled and frozen finfish, chilled or only chilled and frozen, or it is a live or raw bivalves are there. It has been frozen and cooked crustaceans are there, dried and salted, thermally processed, fermented, smoked, accelerated, freeze drying is there, or say it can be a fish pickle. Even they have mentioned about the powdered fish products are there. Then battering is done. So accordingly, all the different categories are being covered in the new say food safety standard regulations, and accordingly the parameters also differs. So I'll show you few slides which I have directly taken from FSSAI say compendium. So there you can actually see that each and every parameter is not been applied to every type of food. So when coming to the milk, again the same parameter distribution is there. Hygiene indicator and food safety indicators are there. So pasteurized milk, boiled milk, then sterilized milk, follow formula is there, ice cream, fermented milk is there, paneer, khoya based products. So accordingly they have very nicely categorized all and try to cover all type of category which actually comes under this milk and milk products. So I have taken this say screenshot from food safety FSSAI compendium. So here you can see say pasteurized and boiled milk is there. So there salmonella in the sampling plan the number is 5 and the acceptance is what 0. So all the 5 samples taken for pasteurized milk should show 0. There should be salmonella should be absent in all the 5 samples taken. Okay. So in case of sterilized milk, here you can see sterilized milk or UHT ultra heat treatment milk samples are there. So all the pathogens they have given that it should be ideally absent. Even the parameters are not needed to be tested because it is assumed that they are absent because of the food processing or the treatment is given to the product. So what parameter has been mentioned here is the it should be comply with the commercial sterility test. That means it has been incubated and it has been tested for say at 55 degrees Celsius to check is there any spores are been there into the sample. So sterility check is being done and not all other pathogens been tested in this type of food which are been sterilized or been ultra heat treatment is being given to that sample. And second interesting as I have mentioned that in case of infant food, the sampling plan is very stringent. Here you can see there 60 samples have been taken and not a single sample is allowed to have salmonella into it. So accordingly, the plan is being developed and how actually it relates with the limit of the food matrix. So you can when you go through all these the details, even you can see that Enterobacter sakazaki, it is not mentioned anywhere. You can see Na is given, not applicable that means, but Enterobacter C is been mentioned in infant food and infant formula. So it should be absent per 10 gram of a sample. Now coming to the fruit and vegetable and various products. Here they have mentioned about E. coli 157 organism need to be tested. Then sulfite reducing Clostridia is there because as the sample goes various type of packing and various type of processing, accordingly parameter will change. It will not remain same for each and every food matrix. So when here you can see that the fresh fruit cut manually processed, fermented, pickled. Here thermally processed, you can see it has been thermally processed or retort processed foods are there. So for the particularly for the retort processed food, it is mentioned that you need to test it for the sterility check. Means the containers, the retort containers, they are been incubated at 55 degrees Celsius and at 37 degrees Celsius. These two different temperatures where the spores can grow at this temperature, and it has been observed for bulging of that packets. So accordingly, same type of parameters have not been taken. It varies as per the sample processing or the treatment of the product has been done. And then coming to the meat and meat product. So earlier there were canned foods were there, various frozen meats. Now they have specifically differentiated at fresh meat, then chilled meat, frozen meat, raw meat is there. If pickled meat is there, fermented meat is there. So if it is a fermented meat, then TPC parameter is not been tested for such type of products. So accordingly, it will change what type of processing it undergoes. It is one of the example I have taken just to show you that how the results are being limits are being divided as satisfactory, acceptable, and unacceptable. So satisfactory results when the aerobic count at 30 degree 48 hour it is less than 10^3, that is 1000, then it says that the results are satisfactory and you can go ahead and can use the product. Acceptable is between the range 10 to say 1000 to 10,000 is the acceptable range. But when it goes to 10, more than 10^4, that is 10,000, it goes above that, then it is completely unacceptable, cannot use that product. So here again I have tried to make more simplify the things. These ready-to-eat food products are been divided into say 4 different type of categories: satisfactory, marginal, unsatisfactory, and potential hazardous. So these are the different class for the specifically for the ready-to-eat food products are there. Class A is shows that the food is satisfactory, the results are satisfactory. Class B is for acceptable, you can acceptable, though the results are little at the higher side, but still it is acceptable for consumption. C is the class C indicates that these are the unsatisfactory results, and class D is not at all acceptable and it causes a potential hazard to the consumer. So these are the food categories, particularly for ready-to-eat foods are there. Fully cooked ready-to-eat food, heat-treated food, not manipulated other than portioning. So description is given what comes under this type of food. So all cooked food, rice, dal, vegetable, what you eat on a daily in lunch here. So these are the regular food which are fully cooked, and these are not manipulated other than just as the portioning of it. When processed food, it is heat treated but manipulated. For example, your pastries are there, they go undergo the oven treatment, but after that it has been, say, pastries or other chocolates or desserts, they undergo some manipulations after the processing. So these are the different categories has been developed depending upon what type of processing the food undergoes. So again, how good, satisfactory are been, the explanation has been given for that. Good is the food completely fit for consumption. You can go ahead and you can eat the food very well. Then satisfactory results, food can result in the minor food related complaints. Process need to be altered or it should be inspected for the preparation part. Unsatisfactory, the mallogical status of the food is it needs the immediate action of it. And unacceptable is a food which is completely unfit for consumption and it can cause the severe poisoning due to the consumption of the food. Now coming to the various type of earlier I have mentioned that how the as per the treatment of the food the limits are being developed. So we will just go through fast all this. There are various slides. So depend there are major 5 types they have taken. One, the type 1 is the heat treated food which is not manipulated other than the portioning part. So here you can see the asterisk mark. These tests are not considered the routine test. It depends, is there any complaint, anything is there, any manipulation is there, that time this test has been conducted. Otherwise, for the heat treated food, normal tests are the total viable count, coliform count, E. coli, Asorius, Salmonella. These tests are been conducted. Even you can notice that Asorius has been not been detected. It is not a qualitative test. It is been done as a quantitative test. It has been enumerated. So that reason we have seen that these organisms they produce the toxin, and when they are in a say noticeable number, it causes the food poisoning or intoxication of the food. Second type is the heat treated food which is manipulated, just like your cream desserts are there. So here you can see how it varies. When it was a complete heat treated food, so the limit for TPC count was 1000. Now when there is manipulations are there after heat treatment, there they have given the flexibility that it should be 10,000. But when it goes beyond say 1 lakh, so it becomes unsatisfactory or unacceptable. Again, they have given what all parameters need to be tested for such type of food samples. Then coming to the raw fruit and frozen range 1000, then 10,000. Now it is showing TPC count is showing it is 5 lakhs. So it depends, because the raw fruit and vegetable it won't get stringent treatment of say food processing. That's why the limits are being say not as stringent as for the cooked food. Then vacuum packed items are there. So it includes the smoked fish, fish salami, smoked salami. So salmon product, smoked salmons are there. So accordingly, the limits changes as per the say processing it has undergone. The fermented items like cheese, yogurt. So here it's a very important part. You can notice that the total viable count given as a dash. That when the product is fermented, it is but obvious you will get a very high total viable count. That's why total viable count is not applicable for such type of food products. Raw meat and fish. So as per the say they have mentioned what all parameters need to be tested and what are the acceptable permissible limit for all these test parameters. So what all the international guidelines for ready to eat products are? These are the GSO standards, which are the Gulf standards are there. Then Philippine national standards, FDA standards are there. Ready to eat uh, food assessment guidelines are there. Microbiological guidelines criteria for ready to eat. By then, say New Zealand, they have given some guidelines. So why these are the guidelines? There are no standards. If the standards are not there, these are the guidelines. It depends upon what processing is being done, how the food is being prepared. So accordingly, these guidelines are being followed. Then there is one guideline which is specifically for the airline catering. Then Sodexo guidelines are there. Hong Kong guidelines are used for the ready-to-eat food for the microbiological testing of the samples. So, thank you. Thank you very much for all your patience.
Hello. Hello. Am I audible, ma'am?
Hello.
Nice. Yes, yes.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was a very informative session. Now we would start with the question and answer session. The first question is how the water activity of food products can be stabilized or can be controlled.
Yeah, so there are various means where can water activity. So it can be you can follow the dehydration process. Food can undergo various type of processing like heat treatment is there. Accordingly, it can be say maintained or it can be reduced water activity.
Okay. The next question is what we have to do when we bring vegetables and other food from market during this pandemic.
Yeah, basically, see, there are various commercial products are also available into the market, which can be used as per the instruction given on the say bottles. You can clean it. So there are some chlorine tablets are there, but you need to see what dosing you are doing. It should not be more than that. The contact time should not be more than given. What so basically you need to follow what all instructions are given onto the product you are using.
Okay. What is the difference between spoiled food and contaminated food?
See, contaminated food is the food who actually cause, say, food illness, while the spoiled food is the food which actually may not cause you the disease or any illness, but it is been spoiled because the physical appearance of the food is been, say, destroyed and it is not acceptable uh, for consumption. So it may say color change is there. Sometimes you may get some smell of smell is there. So that is a spoilage of food because of the enzyme activity of the organisms or the food itself.
Okay, ma'am. What solutions are used to wash the Petri plates used for culture media and for growth of microorganisms?
It need to be decontaminated. Actually, it should be autoclave. That is the actually the standard method. It should be been autoclaved and then only it can be discarded.
Okay. Which method would yield better result? Spread or plate? Spread or pour plate? Does different method gives the same result?
Yeah, basically, see, it has been taken care when you are doing the say calculation part of it. So both the method are the standard methods, and it actually depends upon how your technique is. So while doing the spreading of the plates, it is very important that you should do the spreading and should be say you should dry the inoculum completely and it should be spreaded evenly. Then you will get correct result. And during the calculation part of it, it has been taken care that it will be considered in the calculation of the result.
How do you sterilize the containers for food sample?
Food samples, actually the containers of various types. See, just like I have mentioned that some of the containers are the Ziploc bags are there, which are use and throw bags. But when the containers are there, so it should be autoclavable. It should be the wide mouth bottles should be used, and every time it need to be decontaminated and again it should be sterilized when you are using it. If it is a reusable container, then you need to sterilize it at standard temperature and pressure.
What are the other safety indicator microorganisms?
Safety indicator organisms I mentioned, just like your salmonella is there, listeria. These are the safety indicator who actually cause the disease because of the consumption of the food. Just like your Campylobacter, listeria is there. Various examples are there for the say safety indicator organisms.
Which media should be used for salmonella isolation or detection? SS agar always gives false positive results.
So you can go for say XND agar is there, BSA agar is there. So even hecton enteric agar is there. So various different medias are available commercially, which gives very good results for salmonella.
How will serological detection help? Is it necessary for manufacturers?
See, basically, it helps to actually conclude whether salmonella, because salmonella sometimes the biochemical results, just like your say when you see the TSI slant, so you see the blackening of the slant. So every time it is not because of salmonella also. Sometimes say some organism they say, show similar type of results like salmonella in the TSI slant, or some biochemical results match with the other organism also, just like citrobacter is there. So that's why in that case, when it's very critical, it need to be tested, or the serological test need to be performed in such cases.
Okay. Bacillus species are safety indicators. How?
See, Bacillus species basically why it is the safety indicator, because these are the spore foreign organisms, and these spore foreign organisms get whenever they get a chance or they get the opportunity, they definitely start growing and increasing in number in the food. That's why because of the increase of these organisms, as the number of organisms increases, they produce the say toxin or the poison. That's why it is very important to test the organism as a safety indicator.
What is the sample storage time and temperature?
See, it depends what type of sample it is. If it is a perishable sample, it need to be stored at 0 to 4 degrees Celsius. And when the samples are like your dry powders are there, it can be stored at room temperature. So if it's a frozen food, then definitely it need to be stored at minus 80 degrees Celsius, minus 18 degree or minus 20 degrees Celsius.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much. It was very informative. Now I would like to ask Aditi ma'am to offer the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Suhana. Thank you so much, ma'am, for giving us your valuable time and a wonderful webinar. Thank you for explaining the various contaminants present in food and the indicator microorganisms as hygiene and safety indicators. The concept were well explained in a very simple way, and I'm sure all our participants have gained an insight into the microbial testing. Secondly, I would also like to thank EnviroCare Labs for supporting our department in conducting such a wonderful webinar on microbiology. Further, I would like to thank our principal, sir, for always encouraging and supporting us. I would like to thank our HOD, Gauri ma'am, for being the guiding force throughout the webinar. Secondly, I would also like to extend my gratitude to my colleagues Subhashini ma'am and Suhana for looking after the entire proceedings. This webinar would be incomplete without the technical support of our IT team, Alvin sir, Sham sir, and Ashish sir. And lastly, I would like to thank all the participants for such an overwhelming response. Thank you so much. A small
Thank you.
announcement regarding the feedback that I would like to make is that the feedback link is going to be available in the description box and in the chat box. Also, we are going to share the same link in the Telegram group. So students are required to kindly fill in up the feedback form so that you will be getting certificates. Also, the certificates will take around say 15 days to reach the participants, and no queries regarding the same will be entered. Again, thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Hello, Kavita madam.
Yes, thank you, madam.
Yes, it will be really helpful because our own students they do projects and product development. They will get inhibition when they work with this microbiological testing. So it will enhance their knowledge and they'll get the correct guidance. I mean through this, 1 hour session and the other participants who are related to micro or food technology and so on from industry. So it is really great to hear you. And again, as Aditi said, I'm once again thankful to EnviroCare Labs and Nilesh Ambudkar sir too.
Thank you so much, madam, for the opportunity. We'll be very happy to guide the students. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Good, Cecil.